and boom goes the dynamite.
It is showtime, the moment we've all been waiting for. The Daily Dive gets started today, right now. Episode 1 coming your way. And I am Renee Washington. I'm your host, and I'm going to be joined by Mike Carvelis is going to be diving into all things NLL with me. Now, with the season getting ready to get started so quickly, we've got a lot coming up today. So we are going to be getting into some headlines, some breaking news. We've got Cody Janzen, the Saskatchewan Rush play-by-play broadcaster, joining us later on in the show. But I also want to take this moment to remind you guys, since it is a new show, be sure to subscribe. Hit that button. Follow Daily Dive Lax on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. And also be sure to subscribe to our page on YouTube so you can keep up to date, because every day, Monday through Friday, we are bringing you NLL updates. So the Daily Dive is getting started as we are driving the future of this fast-growing sport, holding no punches and getting into the topics that need discussing. So some breaking news we've got to get into first. What better way to start off our show's premiere than with some breaking news? We've got some exciting news around that, as the NLL is going to be changing their injury reporting procedure. So Mike, joining me, we've got to talk about these changes, what they mean for the league. So just to give you guys an idea, they're changing injury reporting procedures to mimic more of what other professional sports leagues are doing. And this is obviously very big, especially for sports betting partners, to be able to have this type of revenue source, to be able to have this insight as we look at injury updates and what that means for the NLL. Mike, what were your initial thoughts? This news is fresh off the presses and still hasn't even ironed out. We're still waiting on more details and specifics around it. But as the man that broke the news, what are your thoughts around what this means?
You know, my first thought when I read the injury stuff was the betting markets, as you mentioned, because I'll be honest, going on different sites and not seeing much NLL stuff is kind of frustrating sometimes, especially when you think you know what's going to happen in a game. So it feels good. It feels good, and it's obviously the future of sports, whether we like it or not. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, I agree. You just look at across the league, the news, the transactions, the updates. It's not what it needs to be. And as a growing league in box lacrosse, and just for, wanting to compete with other major leagues across the world, with the talent that's in this league, it's needed to have more of that, the discussion around it. And that's why we have Daily Dive, a chance for us to be able to, on the daily, dive into things that are going on around the NLL and have a chance to chat about it. So, I think it's great to, even on the injury side, you think about across other leagues, you get those injury updates, you get the injury reserves, you get the updates of timelines, you're getting the tweets, you're getting the notifications, and there needs to be more of that. I understand there's also, from a strategic aspect, sometimes coaches and teams don't like to disclose that information, but as consumers, as fans, as media, we need that. That keeps the conversation going. If a player goes down, who's next? Who's stepping up? How does this impact the game and the team? So although strategically coaches and teams may not love it, from a fan perspective, as we're digesting NLL news, it is absolutely needed to have. So that is major, and I agree with you. I think it's going to go a long way in terms of sports betting, in terms of just even the discussions around the NLL. Well, speaking of discussions around the NLL and talking about some other exciting things going on, we have some new changes, the new teams on the block. So let's start with the Las Vegas Desert Dogs. Now, I've been in Vegas around sports coverage and just seeing how they've been able to go about talking about their teams, following their teams, and it's an exciting time in Vegas with the announcements and the start of this expansion team. Now, the expansion team's roster does include Captain Rob Hellier, who's, as we know, searching for that first championship. What are your thoughts on the Desert Dogs and what they're going to bring to the league?
It's crazy. I remember last year or this past season hearing about a Vegas franchise, and me and my buddies were like, what is it going to be? Like, what is their name? When I first heard Desert Dogs, I didn't quite know. But now that I've let it build, I've let it sit inside of me and swell up in me, I'm excited for it. I love the color scheme. I've seen their alternate special uniforms. The whole thing is just so exciting. And what better place to grow in an expanding league than Las Vegas with a sports betting market aforementioned. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and as we talk about expansion of even the types of news that is being shared and the coverage, it's great to see the expansion of the league, adding teams each year, expanding into major markets. And as you talk about whether it's the branding behind the Desert Dogs or even just the fact that the Vegas Strip has been having more teams. You look at the Raiders, the Aces, coming off of a title in the WNBA. You've got the Desert Dogs. There's more sports in Vegas, which for sports betting is great, but also just to be able to tap into a major market that as teams are going to travel to Vegas and fans are traveling to Vegas, do I need to say any more?
I'm glad you mentioned the WNBA because the way those fans embraced that team was amazing as well. I can only imagine what they're going to do with box lacrosse.
Exactly. And that's what I think has me most excited about it. I've been in Vegas around the excitement of the Aces and just the way that they rolled out the team and the franchise and the success around the team, of course, helped with their championship. But, there are certain markets that tend to do a better job of just embracing their teams. The Seals come to mind with San Diego. There are certain markets that do a much better job. And when you talk to players and coaches, they love that. They feed off of that energy, and it is so needed. And so as we talk about fan bases that are very strong and do a great job supporting their teams, we've got to get into Saskatchewan. The Rush have a tremendous fan base that whether it's the Rush Hulk or just their fans or whatever that may be, that do a great job of supporting them. So as we get back into more on the Daily Dive, coming up, we've got Cody Janzen joining us, the play-by-play broadcaster for Saskatchewan Rush. And we're going to be talking more things around the Rush. So more to come soon here on Daily Dive. Welcome back to Daily Dive. We are talking all things NLL, and Mike and I had the chance to discuss the Las Vegas Desert Dogs, the news around the injury procedures, and now as we get into the Saskatchewan Rush, got to bring in their play-by-play broadcaster, Cody Janzen. Welcome, Cody. Nice to have you here.
Hey, happy to be here. Love the two initiatives you guys are doing, and always down to talk some lacrosse.
Yes. Well, let's talk about the Rush. We were talking about strong fan bases, so it only makes sense that we get into the Rush, who absolutely consistently year after year have one of the best fan bases across the NLL. And they went 3-0 this preseason. And, I know you've been tweeting and talking about just their preseason expectations. What are your expectations for this team, especially as they're trying to turn that corner and have a better season this year than last?
Well, the expectations have to be that they're a playoff team, right? I don't think that surprises anyone that they're going to be going for another championship here. But you also have to be realistic in a sense of San Diego's in your division and they just loaded up. So is it realistic to say, hey, we are the top team in the West or we're going to be the number one team come playoff time? I'm not sure I would be going that far yet. Let's play a few games maybe before we decide. But the expectations is to make the playoffs and go on a run, as is every year. I think with Derek Keenan adding a guy like Alex Bouquet between the pipes, I think that's a huge addition. You've got some of the young guys coming up and going to be making an impact. So you've still got some of those mainstays up front in Mark Matthews, Robert Church that are going to provide offense. And I think with that, as long as you've got them, you should be a playoff team in this league.
Yeah, the news about Alex moving to the Rush to be the netminder was exciting. And there's, as you mentioned, a lot of newcomers, a lot of new faces within this team, which makes sense, especially as they're trying to turn that corner to be able to compete in the conference and the league as a championship caliber team. So I'm curious to know, based on early predictions, season hasn't officially started yet. Why not give your early predictions? Who do you expect to be the biggest impact in terms of newcomers coming in, whether it's a trade or a player picked up in free agency like Alex, or if it's a player that is a rookie?
It's hard not to pick Alex Bouquet, right? Like he's a goalie. I think after preseason, again, starter hasn't been announced, but I think he's probably earned that number one spot, despite how good Eric Penny was against Colorado last season. Bouquet is just a guy who really fits the bill, and I think that he's going to have a massive impact on the back end. You've got Jake Boudreau, a rookie, a first-round pick coming up, speed, skill, physical play, size. He's got it all. He's going to make a big impact. But in preseason, especially against Calgary, I thought Marty Dinsdale was their best forward. And this is a guy coming back to Saskatchewan. He's got 3 championships left for Vancouver. He is going to be an impactful righty, which they were missing last season. They missed that little extra push from the righties on offense. So I think Dinsdale could have a massive impact on this team, one that's going to surprise a lot of the NLL.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, starting with Eric Penny and Alex Bouquet, 2 goaltenders that have over the years made their mark on the league, and we've seen them step up in big ways. And I agree with you. I think it's Alex, but for Eric being the number 2, still a great goaltender in that. And then, as you mentioned, moving forward through the rest of the roster, there's a lot to be excited about, some changes that needed to be made that have been adjusted. And who are your players that you think are going to need to also take that next step in leading this group in terms of helping them be a playoff team, a championship caliber team?
Well, you're going to have to ask a lot more from some of your veterans off the back end. You bring back Kyle Rubish on a 1-year deal. Ryan Dilks gets the franchise piece. Matt Beers is back here. And they've got a young group around them. So you do need your veterans to step up a little bit. And it's not like they played bad last year. It's just, hey, you're going to have to play a bigger role. You're going to have to take on, a little bit of a different adjustment just because of the pieces you have on the back end. So I think everyone has to step up in a sense. But up front, you need a little bit more offense. You can't just have Robert Church and Mark Matthews rowing the boat. I think Dan Lintner did take a good step forward. I still think he should be a 30-goal guy in this league, especially with the power play minutes he's playing. So I think he's a guy who can definitely step up. Marty Dinsdale as well is going to help to chip in. Ryan Keenan. He's a guy who had a down year last year. It's going to happen. Not everyone can go and throw together 5 straight great years in the NLL. So he knows it. He knows he's got to be better. He looked like he had a little bit of a jump in his step as well. So I'm expecting him to take on a bigger role again this upcoming season. And I don't think that that's anything unreasonable to ask because he knows where his ceiling is, and he definitely wasn't at it last year.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Essentially, Saskatchewan for many years consecutively was a title team or just right there. And the rest of the league has made adjustments and caught up, and they had that target on their back. And so now they're trying to get back to that spot of being, an NLL title team. And when you look at players like Matthews, who have been at the top of the league and done such a tremendous job, it's time to now figure out how can the veterans raise their level, but also bring in some of those new faces to add something different that now on scouting reports and in film session, it's not as easy to plan for Saskatchewan because you don't know what to expect coming onto the field. So obviously a big game Saturday. It's time. The season is already here. First of all, it's insane that it's December 1st, but with December 1st means the excitement of the league getting started. So they get to host the defending champs in the Colorado Mammoth. And what type of game do you think fans should expect? And what should we expect as viewers for game 1 of week 1?
It's going to be a battle. Every time Colorado and Saskatchewan play, it's always a 1 or 2 goal game. So I think you can bet the farm. It's probably going to be something like that. But again, at home, Saskatchewan has had Colorado's number. They beat them twice last year. Robert Church goes off for a 5-goal game, scores the overtime winner. And then Eric Penny stands on his head as well. And late in the season, too, even Adam Shute comes in and you beat him 9-8 in a defensive battle where Shute did have to make some big saves late. You got different goal scores in there. So for Saskatchewan, you just know you're not going to put 15-16 past Dylan Ward. That doesn't happen. He's one of, if not the best goaltender in the league. So I would expect a defensive battle. But in Colorado's sense, they're missing Ryan Lee. And when looking, I had the numbers before. I don't have a notepad. I think he had 22 points in 3 games against the Rush last year. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. But again, he just absolutely ate when they were playing the Rush. So with him out of the lineup, where's the extra offense going to come for Colorado? Yes, you get McLaughlin back. Yes, you still got Connor Robinson. You've got some awesome pieces there. but they're not Ryan Lee having 22 points in 3 games. You know, that's just outrageous numbers at 7 points per game. Maybe that's 21. I'm not a math guy. Again, you know, it's going to be low score. I didn't get asked to come on here to do math. No, I mean, you're going to see a low-scoring game. It's going to be a close game. And the least surprising thing is probably that we could get overtime. Like, I think that's a very likely chance. And to have that in your home opener, season opener, you know, it's no wonder Rush fans pack the building.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, that is the hope. You want great games. You know, everybody's been chomping at the bit at the start of the season, just excited to see how all these off-season changes and expansion teams and moves have made an impact so that now we can finally see them play out. We've been talking about it. We've been following it. It's time to finally see it happen. Now, I'm going to ask, because why not? You talk about a possible overtime game. What is your prediction on score? Like, give us your game prediction Saturday, what you think is going to go down.
That's the one question I don't want to ask whenever I go on shows. But, okay, everything was so close last year.
Not?
I'll say 10-9 Rush. I think that's a very reasonable score. I think we see overtime. I think we see a back and forth game that's not going to have these big 5-goal swings like you see elsewhere. I think it's going to be 1 or 2 goals each, back and forth. It's an absolute battle. Saskatchewan needs their power play to connect. I mean, that was one of their saving pieces last year to keep them in. If their power play is strong, that's going to carry them along the way. You know, they can draw some penalties with their speed, with their physicality. So it's going to be a close game. I think 10-9. I'll stick with overtime since I want to see it as well. Who doesn't like that as a broadcaster? But, yeah, that's my prediction.
Yeah, and what a great way that would be to start off the season as we talk about the Rush trying to get back to being a championship caliber team to knock off the defending champs. And also, as you talk about a home opener in front of a packed house, to be able to start the season that way. So I would love a nice 10-9 overtime game. I think that gives you a little bit of everything because defensively it's not – as you mentioned, a swing of 5 or 6 goals either direction. It's a defensive stalemate, but it also means that we've seen some creative offensive looks, whether it's converting on the power play or just maybe being able to find some creative goals that make the difference. Because as we talk about with Dylan and Bouquet, those are some tough goalies to have to beat. So I'm expecting it's not going to be a game that's lopsided, and that's my hope. I'm not a fan of those games, especially as a broadcaster, because we come out to see some great nail-biting, down-to-the-wire close games. But I'd love to see some defensive big plays, some great saves, some great attacks. And I would say around 10-9 makes them. I would say a 2-goal difference, though. I'm gonna just be different. Why not? And say I'm gonna go 8-10. But I'm gonna stick with. I hate to say the Mammoth, but I hate to say it. I'm thinking the Rush are going to go up. I think the Mammoth are going to storm back late, and I think it's going to be like a 2-goal swing where as the Rush are trying to tie things up, the Mammoth get that second kind of like insurance goal in that sense for the win. But what do I know? We'll see.
Time will tell.
We'll see who is correct. But just to play devil's advocate, I had to pick so that we're not both picking the same, and we'll see who is correct on this prediction moving forward.
Totally fair.
Well, Cody, thank you so much for taking time to join us here on the Daily Dive. I'm excited to have you back on in the future, especially to break down more predictions, previews, thoughts as the season is going along, especially with the Rush hoping to climb the ladder and be back at the top of the NLL this season. So thank you so much for taking time out of your Thursday to join us here on our season opener.
Always a pleasure. Look forward to watching the show. Go Rush, go.
Yes. Cody Janzen, guys, Saskatchewan Rush play-by-play broadcaster joining the show. And we've got a little bit more to get into. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got to talk about the Thompson brothers. Let's switch over to the other side of the league, the other side of the country as we talk Georgia Swarm. More to come here on Daily Dive. right. If that beat doesn't get you pumped up on a midday for those of us on the East Coast and early morning for those on the West Coast, I don't know what does. But look, if you're not pumped up as is, the NLL is getting started tomorrow. That's right. This weekend, we finally got action, games to watch, enough talking about the hypotheticals and predictions, but we do have some more predictions and hypotheticals to get into before, of course, we have our initial face-off. So we've talked about the Saskatchewan Rush with Cody Janzen, play-by-play broadcaster of the Rush. We've also had a chance to get into the excitement around the Las Vegas Desert Dogs, as well as the changes in injury protocols, and there's more to come on that as that story continues to unfold. But we have to now get into a team that they last won a championship in 2017, the Georgia Swarm. The Thompson brothers trade, exciting. I've had the chance to sit down with the Thompson brothers in the past during a great opportunity to chat with them about their family, their upbringing, their culture, their experiences playing together. And Jerome was not in that conversation. It was Miles, Lyle, and Jeremy. But the Thompson brothers are reunited. So that trade broke down on November 21st, which seems so long ago now that we're at December 1st, as the Swarm traded a 5th-round pick in the 2023 draft to Panther City in exchange for the vet and face-off specialist Jeremy Thompson, who joins fellow brothers Miles and Lyle. So, Mike, what were your initial thoughts when you heard the news of this trade? And then, of course, the news that and adding into that, the fact that Miles Thompson is out for the season.
So my first thought was, sweet, now I definitely have to go to a local Georgia Swarm game, because when you hear lacrosse and NLL, you think Thompson brothers, and here comes Jeremy and say, hey, we're getting the game back together. And then, like, literally within the next, few days, Miles is out with an injury. I hope he's okay. I know it's for the whole season, so it's not like it's that okay, but it's like bittersweet because I'm excited still, but I still wish Miles was there, because you don't want 2 out of the 3. You want all of them there, because that's what this trade, obviously for the Swarm, was probably doing, was bringing them all 3 together. Oh, I think your microphone's out, Renee.
Oops, can you hear me now? Sorry, I need to stop moving my mic. But yes, we never want to hear about injuries. Never good. And when you talk about the excitement of this trade and what it brings for the Swarm and for their fans, to have the chance for Jeremy to be reunited with Miles and Lyle, and then Miles turns around and gets injured, is out. You want to see how Miles returns, because with any injury, there's always that question of how will they come back, especially a long injury, a major injury. How will they come back from that? How will they recover from that? But then also now it's Jeremy and Lyle. Still 2 of the 4, but 2 brothers together is still a lot to try to manage. And so also for the Georgia Swarm, as you talk about the excitement of going to watch, what does this mean for the team as a whole? The Thompson brothers, obviously one of the biggest legacies in the NLL, and for what they provide for the league, to be able to have them, the leaders of this team, as they're looking to get back to being a team like we talked about 2017 that won a championship, to be back into that conversation.
Yeah, 2017 seems so long ago, but no, it is good to have the firepower, I guess. And it's good to have a face-off guy too, like just a gritty guy who can get you extra possessions when you don't necessarily, I don't want to say deserve them, but he's still a possession for you. And I'll brag about this as well, because you talk about the excitement. You got to interview the Thompson brothers. I've got to interview Charlie B a couple of times. He's the in-arena host guy who has to hype up the fans even when things aren't going well. I'm sure he's got a lot of ammo this year. And I'm excited. I've reached out to him. Come on the show, Charlie B.
You heard it here. We're asking you now. But yes, the Thompson brothers, I love that. The Thompson brothers are phenomenal. When you think about just the work ethic they have, the way they carry themselves, the way that they lift everybody around them, that's why they're the epitome of true leaders and names that are household names across the league. So a lot of excitement there around how this is going to still unfold with Jeremy, as you talk about, as a face-off specialist, one of the best to do it, to be able to help them get extra possessions. That's more time the ball is in the stick of Lyle. That's more time that they're attacking. That's more opportunities for them, and that's dangerous if Lyle's got the ball enough times. So we will continue to see how this unfolds around the Georgia Swarm, around the changes with Jeremy coming into the mix. And I do want to mention before we wrap up and just touch on more exciting changes, because as the season's getting ready to get started, there's a lot of new. And with the new commissioner, Brett Frood, who was named commissioner August 2nd, his role officially begins today, essentially. And the former president of the successful NASCAR team, Stuart Haas Racing, has made an immediate impact. He's been able to change the playoff format. So now top 4 from the East, top 3 from the West, and 1 wild card, whether it's the 4th place team from the West or the 5th place team from the East, will be joining into the playoffs. So what are your initial thoughts on the new playoff format?
Well, first of all, I love the signing of Brett Frood because I'm a NASCAR fan too, and I know that he's been being instrumental in getting their advertising up the last couple years. So I can only imagine what box lacrosse does. As for the playoff format, it's awesome. It's got to be awesome. It's got the feel of the other major sports, and I'm telling you, the action, man. They get Memorial Day weekend. They got like the first 2 championship games too, which is like really sweet as well. It's the season coming up is going to be awesome. I thought last season was great.
Yes. I mean, look, playoff time is a different breed. You know, having more opportunities to see teams get into the postseason. And what makes this so great is it just gives more to fight for, to play for. So those teams that are on, you know, just on the cusp of being able to get a seed now have a little extra that now towards the end of the season they can compete for. I love what wild card options bring for leagues, especially in those middle of the standings teams, to be able to have a little extra that now know, you know, it's like playing games and wild cards, all these things. We love to be able to see it because we want teams and players to have a chance to fight for it, to fight for that spot. And I'm hoping this year we've got a few teams that are in the mix of that 4 and 5 seed that are competing for it at the end of the season, but also to expand the playoffs to have more, because as we all know, postseason is a completely different beast. It's exciting. There's always something that catches you off guard, and it's what we live to see as we find out who's going to be the champion for the upcoming season. So yes, lots to look forward to this season as we are getting ready to get started with the NLL 2022-2023 season. And so that just about does it for us here on the Daily Dive. Now, I want to let you guys know, tomorrow we will have some great topics to discuss as we're breaking down previews, recapping preseason a little bit more, and giving our thoughts and predictions ahead of the initial game, starting with the Wings Thunderbirds matchup Friday. So lots coming your way here on Daily Dive. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to follow us on social media at Daily Dive Lax, on YouTube as well, so you can keep up to date with all the new shows and episodes we're bringing you Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific Time, and whichever other time zone fits around that in between. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Renee Washington. I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you back here on the Daily Dive Friday, tomorrow, for more around predictions and previews heading into week 1. Have a good